Boleh, boleh. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will begin with the first chapter. In this Minhajul Abidin, Imam Ghazali has 7 valleys. We call it as valley. The following is the order set up which I referred at the beginning. The gist of this order and set up it is that that 7 valleys stand in the path of worship and devotion. The valley of knowledge is the first one that we are going through tonight, knowledge and acquaintance. So this is where many of us thought that pursuing knowledge means that's it. But you did not know what are the consequences and what are the things that causes obstruction, the hindrance and all others. So this is where Imam Ghazali rahimullah alayhi he defined. And the Arabic term that he used is aqaba. Aqaba can be also meant like you are on a journey, you embark into this journey. So he says the first valley of knowledge, and this is the basic need of anyone who desires salvation and a life of worship and devotion, is to acquire knowledge and acquaintance, as this is the origin of everything on which depends all success. Without knowledge, then you are not going to be able to succeed. So knowledge and worship are so valuable, depend all knowledge and worship are so valuable and priceless. So priceless gems that they form the subject matter of all the compilation of the learned writers and of the speeches and sermon of the erudite religious scholars. The entire activities around us are devoted to the diffusion of light of this most precious and essential divine gift. So to spread this light of knowledge and learning exalted Allah revealed heavenly scriptures and sent down prophets alayhi salatu wasalam. In fact, Allah created all things and all beings of the world and the heaven for the sake of knowledge and worship. As again, you can see the Quranic verse here where it says, Allahu allazi khalaqa sab'a samawat wa minal ardi mithlahunna yatanazzalu amru bainahunna lita'lamuna anna Allah ala kulli syai'in qadir wa anna Allah qad hataba bi kulli syai'in alim. Which means it is Allah who has created the 7 heaven and of the earth, the light thereof. The commandment comes down among them slowly that you may know that Allah is able to do all things and that Allah surrounds all things in knowledge. This is in chapter 65, verse 12 of Surah At-Talaq. So this verse is a clear proof of the excellence and importance of knowledge, particularly the knowledge of religious tenets and of the oneness of Allah. The knowledge of the religious tenets. At another place, it has been said in the Quran in chapter 51, verse 56, Surah Az-Zariyat, Allah says, Ba'da a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, wa ma khalaqtul jinn wal ins illa liya'budun. I created the jinn and mankind that they may serve only me. So there is a very clear description in this verse of the purpose of life, why you were created. Thus, the most important work of the world consists of acquisition of knowledge and devotion to worship of the exalted Allah. Now, this is also the aim of creation of the 2 worlds, It is therefore very imperative that man should devote himself to these two duties sincerely, diligently, in preference to all other activities which are vain and useless. It should be noted that knowledge is superior to worship. Knowledge first. The Holy Prophet ﷺ has said in an hadith, he says, an alim, a learned man, is superior to a worshipper just as I am superior to you. Which is, inna afdal al-alima ala al-abdi faddali ala al-adna rajulin min ummati. And then he also mentioned in another hadith to call upon an alim. He said to call upon an alim is better. You know, to call upon an alim is better than a year worship. Meaning you go and study with a learned is better than you worship for 1 year, night vigil and fasting. Why? Because no point if you do not understand what you do. So the saying is nazaratun ilal alimil ahabba ilay min ibadati sana siyamiha wa qiyamiha. That is the Arabic version of it, which means to call upon an alim is better than a year worship, night vigil and fasting. And the Prophet also said, should I tell you who are the best dwellers of paradise? Ala adulukum ala al-ashrafil ahlil jannah. Should I tell you who are the best dwellers of the paradise? Then the companion answers, yes. O Messenger of Allah, do tell us. Then the Prophet ﷺ says, al-ulama ummati. He said the scholars of my community. So it appears from the foregoing saying of the Prophet ﷺ that in essence, knowledge is better than worship. It does not, however, mean that worship is less important. No, of course not. In fact, only that knowledge is useful, which is put into practice and used in worship. Knowledge without action thereon is useless, and knowledge is like a tree, and worship is like its fruits. A tree without fruits loses its importance. So side by side with knowledge, worship too is essential. It is therefore necessary for men to acquire excellence in both these branches, as mentioned here by Hassan al-Basri, rahimullah alayh, where he says, acquire knowledge without causing any loss to worship. Similarly, devote yourself to worship without causing any loss to the acquisition of knowledge. See, it's a balance. And this is what you normally see, that there's imbalance in the Muslim society. One they go for knowledge, all other is not important. Another party, they go for all the amal, the knowledge is not important. How could that be? We should balance it. Okay? So thus it becomes confirmed that knowledge and worship both are important in their place for practice and action. Knowledge should, however, be accorded a preference because it is the guiding factor. That is why the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said, knowledge is the guiding factor of action, and action is subordinate to knowledge. That's what al-ilmu imam al-amal, al-amal tabi'u. That is what it means by knowledge is is a guiding factor. So that is why the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said, knowledge is the guiding factor of action, and action is subordinate to knowledge. So in other words, knowledge is indispensable for action. No action can be taken without knowledge. There are two reasons for according preference to knowledge here. First, worship to be in order and rightly offered, it is very necessary that the worshipper should have adequate knowledge about his Lord whom he is worshipping. This is where in my other classes, most of the time I keep on repeating the Arabic word means aqidah in the study of theology. That must be mastered. You must try to master because that is knowledge about the Lord, whom you are worshipping. You know, his entity, his attributes, both personal and qualitative, essential and impossible. This is what you need to know about him. Because once this is be in place in your mind, then you have no issue of. I mean, you will not be hesitating. You will there will be no worries, and you don't have to be thinking that you're not alone in this world. You will not be abandoned by Allah, no matter whatever you're going through in life. He is always there. The question of whether you have faith or not. So this is necessary, lest he should, in his ignorance, ascribe to Allah some realistic and derogatory attribute to the exalted Allah and thus ruin his worship altogether. Can you imagine? Because if you worship him and then you belittling him or you have doubt on him, is he listening to you and why are you not getting what you're supposed to get and this and that, why you're not getting a better job, doesn't he know? See, this is derogatory. You're bringing down the attributes of Allah subhanallah ta'ala, and that will ruin your worship. So this is, as I said, in many instances, people disregard this thing. Yeah, once your worship is ruined, then it's purposeless of whatever that you're doing. So this is a grievous risk which I have discussed in detail according to Imam Ghazali in his book Ihya Ulumuddin. That is the revival of the religion under the heading of bad end in the chapter of Kitabul Khawf, in the chapter of fear, in that book. Thereafter, man should acquire knowledge about essential duties, command, and then knowledge about the prohibition as laid down in the Sharia. Then this command must be obeyed and the prohibition shunned totally. It is not possible to worship Allah in the right way and refrain from sin unless a man learn the method, style, the prescribed hours, and the manner of praying. So it's necessary in connection with Sharia, in connection with Islamic jurisprudence, forms of worship to know the essential duties like purity of the body, prayer, fasting, zakat, the compulsory charity, including their various problems, then injunction, condition, etc., etc. Now, in order to perform these various forms and items of worship correctly, it is not likely but quite certain that on account of ignorance, a man may be doing during his worship something which may violate his prayer. An example will be the ablution, or he may fail to do this act according to the sunnah. Then that's where it's likely to be losing uh, the reward of what he's doing, isn't it? So it is therefore very important to know the problems and injunctions not only about their outer form, but also the inner spirit. This is what is always missing in this modern. And this is essential duty, and this is what they call in Arabic tawakkul, trust in Allah. And trusting all matters to Allah. Then you must also learn how to rida. Rida in contentment of Allah's degree. It's easy to say it, and that is the key. That will be the first questioning. That is the reason why I introduced to you Ratib al-Haddad. How to answer the angel in the graveyard. The first thing when he questioned you, Man Rabbuka, the answer is Raditu billahi Rabban. You see, it's inside Ratib al-Haddad. Although in Ratib al-Haddad is mentioned is Radina billah because na is plural. we are seeking Allah Ta'ala pleasure. That's why in the reading you are saying Radina Billahi Rabban. But in the questioning of the graveyard, it becomes uh, when you question Man Rabbuka, the answer is Raditu Billahi Rabban. And Man, uh, uh, the second question will be Man Dinuka. Man Dinuka, what is your religion? Islam Adina. Islam Adina. Remember, Raditu Billahi Rabban wa bil Islam Adina. And the third one, Man Nabiyuka. That's where the answer is Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam Nabiyun. So this is very important. This is what it means by. So what normally happen is the contentment with Allah degrees is where people doesn't understand. Many people feel very. You're not happy when something happened to you or your ship been been attacked by yeah, pirates or in the sea. You know, one vessel went down, captain missing, this and that. So this is what degree of Allah which we don't understand. When it comes to you multiply your sheep, ah, you never say anything, isn't it? But one or two sheep went down, you curse Allah like don't know what. Billah. This is very risky. That's why it's very important to be very careful of these things. You must not be, you must understand about this rida. Rida means contentment with Allah's degree. Then you need to learn sabr, patience. Must always be patient. Hot weather, you see, patient. Huh? Then tawbah, repentance, sincerity, ikhlas, and etc. These are forms of worship of the heart. These are the form of worship of the heart, which will, God willing, be explained in the ensuing chapters, inshallah. In the same way, it is necessary to acquire knowledge about the prohibition, which are the opposites of the commandments. This is like anger. How do you deal with that? And fulul amal, prolonged hopes, riya, ostentation, kibir, pride, and then ujub, vanity and jealousy. So it is necessary to refrain from these inner vices because inner worship is also an obligatory duty. It's an obligatory duty. Sometimes that you find it very funny. People are praying, but why you cannot be nice to one another? How come you cannot love dog? You got problem with dogs, eh? Example. You know? Right? Some of us got problem. You know? So this is the saddest part. These are all because of our heart are affected by all these uh, things that is the opposite, you know. So it's necessary to refrain from these inner vices because inner vices is also an obligatory duty about which glorious Allah has issued clear injunction. For example, here in chapter 5, verse 23, وَعَلَى فَيَتَوَكَّلُونَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. So put your trust in Allah if you are a believer. Put your trust in Allah. Then again, he mentioned in chapter 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 172. وَاشْكُرُوا لِلَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ. And render thanks to Allah if you worship only Him. Then again, another verse in chapter 16, Surah Al-Anfal, verse 46. وَاسْبِرُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Endure patiently. Endure patiently, for Allah is with those who are patient. Something happened to your father-in-law, endure it. This one, why? I already mentioned to you before, we vary of the Quranic verses if it is repeated. If it is repeated, then you know every suffering will end with goodness. Every goodness will end with bad, you know. So that's why you need to be very careful of this. Then in chapter 73, Allah mentioned also Surah Al-Muzammil, verse 8, where it says, and devote to him with complete devotion. Complete devotion. It's not conditional. So now see that in this verse, exalted Allah has enjoined sincerity in all action and deed. In all action and deed. That's why Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam have reminded us regarding every act of worship. He reminded us to say, "Innama a'malu binniyat." Be wary of the intention. Sometimes that you have to even reinstate, like you come into class for the sake of looking at mass, example mass. Then you need to reinstate. Why mass is disturbing you? Is it? Example lah, it's distracting you or what? Then you need to reinstate. Job is available. Now see that in this verse, exalted Allah has enjoined sincerity in all action and deeds. So there are other verses containing similar injunction, like this, like those about prayer, fasting. It is surprising that the people take care to discharge their obligation to prayer and fasting, but pay no attention to the obligation. Holy Quran contains injunction about both, meaning physically and spiritually. What will be the fate of that person who is so much drowned in these worldly affairs that he makes no distinction between what is good and what is bad? Leaving aside the good deeds which exalted Allah has described in the Quran as wisdom and light of the right guidance, he acquires such knowledge whereby he earns unlawful wealth and wretched worldly fate. What is the use? Right? So here, Imam Ghazali said, "Oh, you who are hankering after the world, have you no fear of Allah in your heart, that ignoring many of the essential duties, you are devoting yourself to optional prayers and fasting? This behavior on your part speaks of your worthlessness. It is also likely that you may, in your ignorance or negligence, be committing such major sin as many render you liable for punishment. This being your behavior, if you give up some of the permissible deeds, like eating, drinking, and sleeping, for the sake of attaining nearness to Allah, your labor will go waste. What is worse and more risky is that you build hope on this act, although it is a sin to entertain hope and expectation. You are under the misconception that yours is a good intention. Remember, we have studied about that. You cannot be you are deceptive or deception of the Satan. You're cheated. So there is a difference between a good intention and a wishfulness of which are not aware.
So this paragraph talks about you trying to gain nearness to Allah instead of focusing on the obligatory, focus
Sunnah.
on the sunnah, and then yet you are hoping to be near to Allah. So
First, as mentioned, that it becomes worthless. Yeah. Yeah, by right. This is the problem with especially for those people who never attend class. They wouldn't know which have to be given the first priority. Unfortunately, so they even if they were to be doing the obligatory, but the obligatoriness of what they did is not up to the expectation of what God wants. They just thought that, oh, I have fulfilled the obligation. That's it. Full stop. You know, you must remember that Allah is not in need of anything from us. So you must go in depth studies to understand what His prayer is all about. It is not that Allah longing for you to be worshipping Him. It's a wrong ideology, wrong understanding of what is been mentioned in the Quran. Because what Allah mentioned clearly in the Quran, that as we know in Surah Zariyat, Allah made it very clear, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونِ, that I did not create you but for you to serve me. So the word serve is very wide. You need to be able to understand, because what we are hoping for in serving Allah is to achieve rida, for Allah to be pleased with what we do. If Allah is not pleased, then you can be praying your whole life also. It becomes purpose. Because if you read about Iblis, ilahi la'anatullah, the English call them Lucifer, or sometimes they use the word shaitan, then you will know that he is very holy, or rather very good worshipper. But yet, you see what happened to him. One simple test coming from Allah, a command from Allah, where Allah tell him, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. I'm creating a vicegerent in this world, and then ask him to prostrate. He says, oh, I'm more superior than him. What? I was created from fire. He's from turab. He's from clay. I'm more superior than him. See, how can you be that? I mean, I created you. You are also my creation. How can you turn around and tell me, hey, hello, you don't know why you create ayat all this all troublemaker people. The Quran mentioned that there was what is being said by Satan. These people will shed blood. It's beautiful if you read what is being mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, the dialogue between Satan and Allah, where Allah says that I know better, I know what you knew not. That's why we also the same thing. The first chapter revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also reminded us, you know, an example, Mr. Zul, if you were to, have no choice but have to leave your shipping company, how could you be telling Allah is wrong? When He said, He tell you before you were created, or when this is the first chapter that was revealed to Muhammad. That chapter consists a lot of other information that are very, very important for us. Where this chapter Allah says, "Na'allam al-insana ma lam ya'lam." I was the one that who taught you from what you knew not. We can do this experiment. Get a child. See what can you teach the child. I mean, now is science have discovered a lot of things. They know their limits, so to say. So that's where God comes in. There's a lot of challenge in this modern world, that's why knowledge become very crucial. So this behavior, again, you may be expressing to exalted Allah. Sorry, for the sake of attaining nearness to Allah, your labor will go waste. What is worse and more risky is that you build hope on this act, although it is a sin to entertain hope. Because hope is without effort. Hope without effort, that is purposeless. You are under the misconception that yours is a good intention. There is difference between a good intention and wishfulness, of which you are not aware. Again, you may be expressing to exalted Allah your anxiety, anguish, and unwillingly fear, impatient, and displeasure, and be thinking that in this way you are only expressing your submission and supplication to Allah. You are addicted to ostentation. and show, yet consider it lawful. How could that be? You may invite the people to piety and righteousness, yet you take your sin as act of virtue on account of this invitation, and thereby you may hope for reward instead of punishment. So this is all Satan deception, and you are laboring under a misconception and a great negligence. All these ills and evil before him who does something without acquiring the requisite knowledge which is most imperative. So it should also be borne in mind that the outer action and the inner action are closely interrelated. Because otherwise it's too easy. Anyone you teach them to pray, they can pray. Praise is a physical movement. It looks like if you study Hinduism, it looks like what they call that? The Hindu what the prayer of how they do it. Sorry? The no no the sorry, never mind, I forgot the like tantra. It's more or less, so it should also be born, usually. So for example, ostentation or show being an inner action is not visible to others, but it has the effect of spoiling worship and rendering it unacceptable in the sight of exalted Allah. Similarly, ikhlas, sincerity, is an inner action, but its presence or absence render the outer action acceptable or unacceptable. So a man's outer action cannot be sound unless he knows the effect of the inner action. It comes from the heart on the outer one and knows how and from which of the inner action he should keep himself alone. Thus, for one of this knowledge, neither his inner nor his outer action can be sound and acceptable. His, his endeavor without knowledge will result in nothing but mere toil and trouble. And thus it has been said in the Holy Quran in chapter 22, verse 11. I can't see, it's too small. Anyway, I will read the translation. He losses both the world and the hereafter, that is indeed an evident loss. The Holy Prophet also said that it is fortunate and pious who are granted learning, and the unfortunate are deprived of it. So this hadith means that a man without knowledge is unfortunate in every respect. It is his bad luck that he is without knowledge. For this reason, all his worship and devotion go waste. They are rendered unacceptable. I seek refuge with Allah from the trial of ignorance, from the knowledge that is not. This is some of the dua that I have taught you. From knowledge that is not profitable, and from a deed that is not lifted above. That is why all the saints of the Ummah and the friends of Allah first try to acquire knowledge. Soundness of worship, soundness of worship mostly depend on knowledge. Discerning men, scholars, and qualified persons consider knowledge to be foundation of all good deeds and virtues. The entire discussion boiled to the conclusion that without knowledge, worship remains defective and incomplete. It is therefore necessary to accord preference to knowledge to worship Another reason to preference to knowledge is that beneficial knowledge creates fear of Allah, Lord of the two worlds. And as Allah mentioned here in chapter 35, verse 28, which is Surah Al-Fatir, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. It is the learned one among his servant who fear him, fear Allah. So a man who has not acquired adequate knowledge of an acquaintance with Allah, the fear here is not like until you cannot pray. No, no. The fear here is knowing. You know who are you in front of. It is very difficult to make a comparison. Because if you were to compare with the worldly head of state, to some people it's no big deal. It's no big deal. This is something that you cannot compare. It's that feeling that you should have with you that when you have to discipline yourself when you are doing your prayer. He didn't put it in a with an injunction to say that it must be like until you are so steep. No, it is a gradual process for you to reach that level. This can be seen through Shira that they saw some of the companions. They knew that there was someone that is behind them to kill. You can see the shadow of person to kill. But it's a question of you are locked into that dialogue between Allah. So until you don't bother who is behind you, even if you've been stabbed. This is where again it's a very beautiful way of how we can understand the death is not as painful as the way you put it. Allah is capable of making things ease. As we know, the nature of fire burn, but we also know the Quran tells us so, where Ibrahim alayhi salam was not been burned. Because from there we knew that if we follow the creation of nature, that is how, what the fire did. But the fire can also become so does all other objects. That it can. So this is where we must have adequate knowledge of the acquaintance of Allah. If we have that adequate knowledge of the acquaintance of Allah, you may be laughing if I were to say, you know that you can zikir, the money can come out. You want, but then you become greedy if I give you the zikir. And the intention is very wrong because you divert straight only onto the dollar and cent. No, it does not work. It works for some say that I have seen in the context of our society here. There are some that they read and this way the money comes, and only once. They are not. They cannot be producing like they are not bankers. The need will only arise. This is, I'm trying to explain to you if your knowledge are not adequate of the acquaintance of Allah, then there will be a problem. You cannot do full justice. This is again the problem. Like do full justice to his worship, nor to his fear, nor to his respect and regard. You can't. Like the normal our daily chores, right? I think we know how come that we know how to dress up when we go to dinner. We must be properly dressed. That kind of thoughts should always be with us, especially when we are presenting ourselves to Allah. But I tell you, that will be the last among all acts. Why? So this is what Imam Ghazali goes inside to share with us. So that's why he said here, you have to try. You cannot do full justice there to your worship. You cannot fear Allah. You cannot respect because of you do not have. You do not acquire adequate knowledge of the acquaintance of Allah. All right? Can you understand? Yeah. Yes. This is the course. In all probability, is political. It's a political thing that and because of they don't have enough knowledge to define the situation after they've been oppressed, they just take the law on their own hand. There is a beautiful explanation which I don't bring it today by a European who study Islamic law, and he mastered it, and beautiful how he see the confusion of us understanding what is Sharia, and it leads into us interpreting in our own version. This is very he's a revert also. American convert wrote about. I just received. Maybe I will share with you other days. I didn't bring the. I downloaded already to the paper. I forgot the. It's about Sharia. They define the usage of the wall. I think his name is Wall. Forgot his Muslim name. Beautifully how he explained how misleading we understood religion, particularly about this system of the Sharia system. So this is the danger if once these are not being correctly being placed in your heart, you can be one of these uh, so-called terrorists. If it is not properly been uh, what you call it, if there's not adequate knowledge, enough knowledge for you to understand, because the it is important. That's why when we want to make a decision, we must be able to be very calm in our day-to-day life. Because if you are not calm, the decision is not from the angel; it will be from the Satan. It's based on the desire. Then it becomes very violent in whatever you decide, and worse still, that you use the Quran to claim that, oh, okay, this is what the Quran says. And this is the what happened to these other groups. So this is why knowledge combined in it all virtues and qualities. The knowledge combined in it all virtues and qualities. It accumulate in one person all virtues and stop him from all vices. That is most important. You must stop him from all vices. He becomes entitled to Allah help and support. Once you're able to do that, you see, no worry now. I don't need to work. What you will no, that's not what I meant. You will become entitled to Allah's help. Allah will definitely help you. I mean, beautifully, He have assured you. This is where adequate knowledge it becomes important. Beautifully, He have assured you by one of His statements where He says, "Wama min dabbatin fil ardi illa Allah rizquha." Nothing that crawls in this earth where the sustenance are not being taken care of. So it's impossible if you think that you doesn't get help and support. How he doesn't explain. This is where the network is important. We must have that network. So these are the only two gifts which a servant of Allah needs in the path of worship. That's all what you need. It is knowledge, which is the first requirement of a man in following the path of worship. So to acquire knowledge is an obligatory duty, as we know. طَالَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ. That is the first saying of the Prophet. It is obligatory duty for every Muslim man and woman to seek knowledge. So a question arises as to which kind of knowledge now. We went through this in the other book. Is the same thing mentioned here. The answer to this question it refers to these three. So for general people, or rather for the general public, this is the three knowledge becomes essential, becomes obligatory. You must learn. First is the knowledge of the oneness of God, the knowledge of the tenets. Then second, the knowledge of the secret. Example, the knowledge of practicing Sharia and Tasawwuf, mysticism which concern the heart and its spiritual disease. And last, the knowledge of Sharia. as I put it, as theology, Sharia, and the moral studies. As regard the limits of the knowledge, these are knowledge of the oneness of Allah and the tenets form an obligatory duty to the extent that a man should learn correctly that he has to worship Allah, the one who has no partner, is adorned with all attributes, is free from newness, he has no beginning and no end, he is eternal, everlasting, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant and messenger, and whatever convey with his blessed tongue to his ummah. This is again another area that we fail to understand. What is the role of a prophet there? Why is prophets are important to us? This is unfortunately in another book as I mentioned, written in Malay by Dr. Uh, anyway, it is very important for us to understand why. Why is there a need of us to be sent in a prophet? Is it important for us to follow what he said? So if we fail to understand that, then that becomes a problem too. So this is why I mentioned here convey his blessed tongue to his ummah from Allah and is 100% true. And is 100% true.
100%.
Yeah. So this includes revelation detail about the events of the hereafter. And this is where you need to know, jokes aside. If it is a prophet is telling you what is going to happen to you in the graveyard, better believe it. Better believe it because it is a revelation. This has been stated in the Quran, supported by the Quran, where Allah says, وَمَنْ يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنَّ وَحْيُ يُوحَىٰ. They don't speak out of own their desire. What they relate to you is from Allah. So if we said about the severity of what is going to happen to us in the graveyard, we should listen. We should listen. We should not just put it aside. So this includes revelation in detail about the events of the hereafter, and it is necessary to understand and know the tenets of the school of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, referring to the majority. The majority, Ahl Sunnah means that the majority that follow the sound saying of the Prophet incongruent, so that man may remain safe from the matters contrary to the Sharia, like innovation and forbidden act. Do not invent in religion anything new, nor try to prove it's correct what is not proof from the Quran and the Hadith. This is very dangerous method, which is now happening. I don't want to mention which country, about the Syrian reviving the Orthodox practice, and it looks similar like Islam. Yeah, whatever, like, So we don't want to develop anything. So it's again, it boils back again to where you study your religion, isn't it? So especially if you're in a country where financial is an issue, when you talk about survival, this is what happens. People will just join any group. We are very fortunate, and yet we are not close to Allah either. So if this group comes in, then people will be cheated by them. This is what happens in some countries. I'm doing whatever that I can to help. So this is a very dangerous matter. As regard Tawheed, so if you have learned all this of this subject, I doubt so that you can be. Do you have? You possess an unshakable faith, Madam Hannah? Because once if you study Islam, there is nothing that can automatically be accepted by you. Because what Islam taught is logical. What others does is illogical. It's a question of whether you want to use your mind or not. Whether you want to use, whether you're inspired by Allah or not. But in Islam, everything, whatever you learn is logical. It makes sense. It has to be logic. Cannot be something that, is illogical. And it's against human nature. Human will not want to be doing something stupid, in other words. But there are stupid people that wants to do that. So, so as regard to Tawheed, so it's proof. The proof are available in the book of Allah, the Quran, the Holy Quran. Our learned scholars have explained them in detail in the books of the principle of Usulul Fiqh, the principle of the religion. In short, it is an obligatory duty to learn everything, the ignorance of which may lead man to ruin, error, and deviation from the straight path. It is not lawful to be ignorant of such important matters. It is necessary again to acquire such knowledge of the secrets, like the knowledge of suluk, this is the soul, as may acquaint man with the commands, prohibition, and he may become aware of Allah's greatness and glory, and the sincerity of intention, and be able to preserve and protect this knowledge. In order to become secure from the vices and sin which ruin virtues and good deeds. Detail of most of these will follow shortly. We will learn about it later. The limits of knowledge concerning Sharia or Islamic jurisprudence, it is that man should acquire the knowledge of all obligatory duties. It is necessary to know these duties, the method of their discharging in full detail. An example about purification of the body, prayer, fasting. And it's also necessary to have knowledge of zakat, pilgrimage for those on whom these obligations fall due, so that they may discharge this obligation. It is not obligatory, although it is desirable for those who are not liable for these two obligations to have a knowledge thereof. These are the minimum limits of knowledge which must be acquired as a matter of obligation, as there is no escape from this. As regards the questions of acquiring this knowledge is greater detail, so as to be able to debate with non-Muslims if it is necessary, and convince them of the truth of Islam with convincing argument and proof. This becomes fardu kifaya. In Arabic, there's written fardu kifaya is an obligation which can be discharged by sections of population of an area on behalf of the entire population. So if none discharge this duty, the entire population becomes liable for it. So the obligation on you is limited to the extent that your belief and tenets becomes quite right and in order. You are not liable for more than this. Okay? As regard the knowledge of Tawheed, it is not necessary to know all its branches. Depend on you, because this is a very difficult subject, because it uses a lot of Quran, because it talks about the unseen. This is where the role of prophets are not to be taken lightly. You are talking about something that human are not able to reach, human are not able to explain. So it must come from the prophet, and this is where you need to know the importance of listening to the prophet, because they goes into more in detail. So that's why this knowledge is considered as something that is just desirable for you if you want to know the branches. Its knowledge is necessary only to an extent which may uh, enable you to correct your doubt. That's all. You must remove the doubt, remove your misunderstanding about God. If you ever face them, it will come. It will come sometime. You just don't understand. You have been doing good, but then you only get the negative. So these are the things that you need to go into this subject to understand up to the degree that has already been degreed by him. It's very difficult for human to tackle this. So it's not necessary that you should involve yourself in debate and arguments that this topic because it is likely to throw you into doubts and confusion. This is very difficult unless, as I said, you are good in Arabic. It must also be understood that in every area and city there should be a learned scholars to resolve such doubt. Bid'ah. There must be scholars to help you to tell you, okay, we should remain busy with acquiring detailed knowledge about this matter. In the presence of such scholars, the responsibility is lifted from the rest of the population. It is also necessary to have detailed knowledge of the secret, except that one must know those vice and evil which spoil worship, so that one may remain safe from them. And it is also necessary to have knowledge of the good action of the heart, the praise of Allah, gratitude, trust in Allah. For this, detailed knowledge is not necessary. Likewise, it is not essential to have a detailed knowledge of all the chapters of jurisprudence, like fiqh, nikah, if you do not want to be knowing, lah, divorce, sale, monopoly, and this is under the subject of fardu kifayah. It's a collective, not an individual duty, as already explained earlier. Wallahu alam. I think we stop here. So, any question? Uh, Question, Mr. Tu?
Uh, sir, I think on page 29, where they talk about the same kinds of knowledge, they have one, the knowledge, then they mention the knowledge of practicing the Sharia. What is the difference between that and the knowledge of the Sharia?
Knowledge of the Sharia is just is broader. Knowledge of the practice is more referring to the day-to-day act of what we are doing. If you learn the Sharia, it's a broader subject.
So it's like you're learning about what Sharia is.
Yes.
Then the knowledge of practicing the Sharia is about the actual Sharia that we are talking about. Like,
More onto day-to-day.
pray 5 times a day.
No, about all others. Example like the food. In our context, I have another book that I didn't brought it to share with you. This is where we go into the modern issue about yeah the modern issue about what do you call it what do you call it the organic and the what another one? Organic food and genetic. So there's a book that they debate about this issue. That as I've been telling you that I was hoping that every of my classes that I should be hearing more from the students. The students should be the one that raising the issue, questioning. I mean, if necessary to be debating by all means, because we need to know the truth. We need to know what is being debated. It is recorded, like. But unfortunately, because Singapore, we are not the Muslim majority, we don't have classes like that, unfortunately. But in books, it's written already by Brunei Mufti.
So that example that would be the knowledge of the Sharia.
Yes.
Then once they come up with the Sharia for that topic, then we go to practicing.
Yes. How to apply? Like, because this book, example, it debate about, of course, some of these things we already knew. Example like bread. There are some bread that is mixed with certain things that cannot be eaten by us. Okay, even if you don't have issue with bread, but you have issue with now non-Muslim selling halal food can or cannot be bought. So what are the factors that we need to look into when we are buying a product that is not? Now we have more and more non-Muslim stores here in Singapore. We have Myanmar, Philippines,
selling the
selling the halal food. So you need to be wary of what is halal there.
so I mean using that as an example, what you say about having knowledge that is quite complete. We will first need to know the Sharia of eating halal and haram food. Next, we have to look in terms of maybe the tasawwuf part in eating that it could be halal,
Mm.
but we also need to look at how halal in terms of the person selling it could be things like hygiene.
Yes,
Do they really practice it, so on and
yes,
so forth. So it's not just halal and haram to say based on stickers or
yes,
things, but we have to look at other aspects as well.
yeah,
And maybe that part might fall under tasawwuf as well.
yes, yes. That is because you have to make sure that everything is pure.
So that is like, I mean, based on this, it seems that it's telling us to have a holistic aspect
Yes.
of knowledge. Yeah.
I don't know. You think is that too tough for you? Well,
It's not tough, lah, but I have this question, which I don't think is a good question, but it's like if anyone who takes this art model, comparing one young person and one who he start doing it when you reach like 40 years. Where is the guideline? Like there are those who first basically a few days before they die, then they. I'm just saying, how do we know when you will reach the sufficient, at least sufficient level? Like we have tests and then it's not really a trying to say when do we know? It's like okay, if we clear the one
mm,
or like if we clear half
mm,
that guideline.
yes. You will be at ease in order for you to know that whatever you have, the effort that you have put in, right, is practical.
I can't tell. Like I mean, I'm so far away. So um, I mean, like those people who started when they're young. I mean, of
Mm,
course, everyone is different, but some people who started a year ago.
mm.
How do I know when I have knowledge?
The calmness is the one that where you will know, because otherwise that if you are still doing something that is not in accordance with what the creator wants, right, you will not be at ease. I mean, that's what you saw Muslim who call themselves as Muslim but didn't practice Islam,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And I met nice people who are not Muslim, and they are really nice, like all the things they do, their life, I mean, you know, I'm like, knowledge is so important, but how much is sufficient?
The basic of what you need to know about God, that's all.
But the other day you mentioned that
Mm.
there is the law, okay, then our practice, then on humanity. Roughly how many parts are there?
Three. The major subjects are
Other than all the duties we have to perform. Yeah. The last part is humanity. The middle one, what?
legal, the legal aspect.
Legal first, right?
Yeah.
Legal duties. Then
First is about God.
okay, okay,
How much you know.
okay.
Do you have any doubts? Are your doubts clear? Do you understand how He works? How He answers you? How He attends to you?
There's, I think I can get
Ah,
part scientific
Ah,
and logical things,
yeah.
and then if you can feel it lah, sometimes some people forming.
That's all. You don't need to be, unless if you want to be knowing more, then it fall under the category of.
But is it wrong? I mean, there are some questions that you ask, but is it wrong if someone is more towards like performing his duties and not so much like he finds it difficult. Like I said, there are some friends, so-called good friends around me that it's because I hang out with them a lot, so we share different. It is so easy to share. Like I can share with people who are not around me. Once I succeed something like that, especially among our yeah community inside. Then I do jokes. Are you a terrorist? Are you know? So I'm just saying. But there are people who like they really just if you go to the mosque, you see people you can feel they have they they won't share with you. They won't because to them maybe they are like what you think they just want to perform that duty. They just want to serve a lot, but it's not so much of that community. Is it wrong?
No, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. You have your own options, your choice. It's a question of you, how much more you need and what else. Depends on the area, the field of where you are in industry.
It's a funny thing I have
Ah.
three so-called friends. They are all doing different areas of staying on land. That's why I'm asking, like I said, there's this question. One is very into the book and history and certain things that and one is very into the more to the management.
Oh,
You can see things, yeah,
senses.
power, And then one is always talking to me like I told you this guy who went away, the other it's always on humanity. It's always telling me, okay, don't just bother about me. But what to do if I'm angry or if um I meet with some unreasonable people lah. But where is this guideline? Why I asked that in the first place? People who will go into like I have certain interest in certain areas also. Later I'll text you the website that I've been studying now. But it's always the stories lah, the stories. So why he did this, but again the reason of why has. But I'm just saying, all of them they are nice. They are nice to me. They are really nice people. They are, I don't think they have a problem lah with everything else, but they are doing different things, very different. Like this one is basically is the type, then this one is another type. What is the guideline of vision knowledge? Exactly what should we do? Like we do this a little bit, that one a little bit. Like,
There is a guideline. It's a question of choice. You have choices that is given to you. It's like okay, it's like working, right? Let's say you have been paid 4K a month.
Right.
Does that suffice? As
Depends.
life goes on, do you want to multiply?
yes,
Or you be keen of investing into others? So that's where the amal meets. That's where these other things that you are mentioning. So the individual, because Islam has given you a guideline on what are your duties in this world. Allah has made it very clear. Hablu min Allah, hablu min nas. Your relationship with Allah is about the 5 pillars. Your relation with your fellow mankind, Allah leave it up to you. But there are guidelines given to you.
I will know lah.
It's a very simple and clear, nothing that it's just that, which is very true. I would also advise you that not to be looking and listening to others. Listen to what the book says.
Yeah.
Because the human will always be commenting. Because the purpose of Allah created us, the purpose, right? First thing you must remember here is to test. This is mentioned in Surah Al-Mulk.
Huh? I still can't get it. Yeah, that's why I still get it.
Well, I mean, it's like I'm the boss, right? I employ you. Can I be doing what I want to do? Who are you? Have you got every right to be questioning me?
I can understand like having children, like then letting them do what they want. Then like you can see what will happen to them. I kind of understand half of it.
Right.
But I still don't understand why.
Okay, they want that requires knowledge for you to understand the degree. what has already been decreed by God, we don't know. So we have to have knowledge to understand the sign of why that is happening. You have to take it slow. Don't rush. These things are.
I guess it's because I don't have enough knowledge. I read and know more,
Yes.
and know more. Sometimes you just get it somehow.
Yeah, once you start, because in tafakkur in Islam, thoughts are very important. Because Allah says that He created us with brain. We must make use of it. But there are a parameter that you must stay within. Don't go out of that. An example will be the unseen cannot be questioned. You wouldn't understand. And he doesn't want to add more problem to you to be here talking about unseen. There will be a problem for us. That is challenge not only for you, for us, for everyone of us. He made it very clear. You are to believe in the unseen. Something that you cannot question. Other than that, yes, you're welcome. The answers are there in the book. I don't know, Mr. Zul. From my own judgment, also, I can tell you that I used to be among the non-Muslims. I don't have any issue at all. But I don't know why all these issues suddenly arises in our time. During my time, we don't have any issue. You eat boat, whatever you work, like who cares? We just move on with our life. So the question goes back again is inadequate of knowledge. So that's where in socializing become an issue. Where actually we have option, we have choice. We need to be in diplomatic will be like in the context of our society. Maybe we are working, we are working person. Amoy want to come and shake hand. Then Mary wants to peck on your cheek. What do you do? I am an ustad. My student from Africa like misses me. She didn't mean anything. I'm really like stuck. I'm taken aback. She just broke me and
Surprise lah.
okay, well, no big deal. So if you were to share this the general people, then they say, how come and who are you to judge? You must understand. So that's why these are now in the Friday sermon. They are giving bit by bit on how diplomatic the prophet is. Can you imagine? Prophet is like PM Lee. People come and can I seek your permission to do zina? Can I seek your permission to go into prostitution? That's what happened to this 17 years old boy and went to see the prophet. You know the companion all. This way the reaction you are able to know this is human. It's a test about their faith. But we have the prophet there. The prophet managed to make them come down. But today we don't have. That's where we have ISIS. This is the issue. People become very personalized with what they think that they saw. And if you go to Turkey, the Turkish people doesn't like Singaporean Muslims because they say that we are very judgmental. By what you saw immediately, you label me as being a cheeky ustad, because an African lady when she's actually 61 years old, much more older than me. I mean, how can you pass that kind of judgment? This is a situational thing. Something like that. It's not really a major issue, but it becomes a major issue. So this is where the proper study of the knowledge of Islam is important. The three subjects is to strike a balance.
So, talking about that kind of example,
About being happy.
do you think there is still do you think there may be a problem? I mean, because based on what you are saying, there are those that are quite hard-headed, in terms of certain beliefs that they have, maybe in terms more of Sharia and stuff like that. Um, But do you think there is also this problem where people are too liberal with Islam?
Yes.
Like okay lah, Ustaz say, never mind lah, we try to understand. They want to think, they want to check hand, just anyhow. Sometimes I find that people can use those kind of statements to also be cheeky,
Yes.
liberal. So I guess my question is it a contextual thing that you need to know where they are coming from and where you stand, what kind of environment that you're in, then you can roughly decide to stay firm or to be a bit more relaxed because maybe in the way of inviting people you will have to do that.
It's supposed to be like that. As I told you that sometimes that's why there's a book that talks about the maxim of Islamic legal system and the application of it. The application of the Islamic legal system vary from country to country because it also respects the social aspect of the society, the culture and the custom. That's why I asked you to read that book written by Bilal Philip. Yeah, where he mentioned that some of this Arab culture of running up and down from Sabah and Marwa, it is been taken by Allah. Allah take that as one of the symbols of Islam, and it becomes part of the Hajj and Umrah rites and rituals. That does not mean that Allah conform to all. In terms of the culture and custom. That's why it is still open. We need to understand the situation there. Yeah. Before, yes. Now, no. Now it becomes part of the rite and ritual. Before the Arab don't want. You ask them to go Safa Marwa, they say no, no. Yeah. So
that's why you see, I said that it's a little bit connected to that of the question. When it's enough? Like, okay, if I don't know you, I see you, then suddenly the woman hug you, and maybe it's fun only lah. Then I will judge you, And if people don't know me, and I maybe they want to judge me lah, like or about the topic also. Let's say some Islam organization like how we dress, how we behave, and all that also. There's no. I'm not trying to make things difficult, but I'm saying there's no clear guidelines. Sometimes you have to be at some place. Some places that culture is different. I want to know, like, if, when you clear, like I said, half the book, like you say, I will know, but this is optional. Then I know what to do, I know roughly, or that I'm more.
good. As long as your heart is with Allah. It is very difficult to explain to humans. They cannot accept. They cannot accept. You don't mean you are not because this is where you need to mold yourself up to a certain extent. Then you can rest assured to yourself you are not taking advantage of the religion. It's a situational thing where you apply it. It's allowed because in Islam we have this clause that says that you're even allowed to eat pig when there is no food. Same.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of times, a lot of things. I will try my best and not to look too religious. Actually, I can, every time I can dress up, I can wear this, I can. But I don't want to frighten people away. People close to me, and